Joy is a challenge to find, but once you do, it's your victory of spirit. You are then free to fly. Consciousness can be an endless dance of joy. Welcome back to the Pleiadian University of Wisdom, where I talk all about energy and empowerment of the soul. And this video is one that gives me great joy, no pun intended, but it truly is one of the things that's so vital to our lives, is that we are really focusing on how to devote ourselves to joy. Joy is different than happiness. Happiness is something that we can feel inside of us, but joy to me is more of a frequency that we actually align to our true spirit and our true soul. And then that is what gives us joy, and then we feel happiness. So I want to talk all about joy today because something that the Pleiadians are very good at and have been giving messages to humans for quite a long time is the idea of joy. Follow your joy. This is one of the greatest secrets in the universe that helps all souls reawaken to their purpose and to a soul fulfillment. So this is all about getting to that point once again within your life and giving you a sense of joy and giving you a sense of purpose. One of the things that really helps me visually understand joy is the idea of the North Star. The North Star has been something that Earth has always kind of looked up towards. And it's in several books, it's in stories about fairy tales, Pinocchio's North Star. You wish on a star, Disney uses it in its logo. It is something that has always been something you wish upon. But what I have realized is that the North Star is actually something that's inside of us. And the North Star is a direct reflection of us following our joy, following our soul purpose. And that is our internal compass. So when you actually go towards your joy in life, that's when you get more and more into your soul purpose, so that you're not just living on Earth and you don't have a type of extraordinary experience, but something that you can create. And we're getting into these times in humanity where technology and things are advancing, and there's going to be more opportunities for people to follow their joy. I think I have earned the right to talk about joy in that I have put aside a lot of fears that I've had, and I have followed a certain path in my life that have led me to this point of being someone that openly expresses himself in this way. This is what gives me joy. And this is something that I feel that I've only walked into quite recently. And it really truly has pointed me in the direction of my North Star, of what I am supposed to be doing on Earth, what's giving me joy, what's my way of actually living a life as best as I can. It actually takes up waking up and shedding your fears. It's about spiritually awakening. You cannot really come to joy until after you spiritually awaken. There's many forms of joy that we can feel inside, but to live a life of joy, to actually embody the actual essence of joy, then that is about your spiritual awakening. And I want to read you something from the Billy Meyer reports that the Pleiadians left as a message a long time ago about joy. The spiritual human is full of joy when he knows about the truth that the creative, which is eternally and indescribably powerful, surrounds him wherever he walks. What is creative is full of endless space, full of endless cognition and the most perfect perfection. It is the source of all wonders of the highest spiritual consciousness that is present everywhere, within and external. His joy is as endless as the spiritual life itself. So as you see, you cannot get to joy until you're actually deep within your spirit. You live a life of spiritual interest and focus rather than just material. The problem with joy is that it's hard to obtain when you're simply living for material possessions and material happiness. You feel that things will bring you happiness, when actually it's completely opposite. It's the moments, it's you following your soul purpose and your drive and what makes you happy and full of joy. The fairies have always been good at understanding the idea of joy. They've tried to spread joy and laughter all over the earth for all time. And they have left humans with that magic to understand that joy is something that needs to be followed. No matter the consequences of who is in your life or the obstacles that you have, find what makes you joyful and follow that. And you will have a life full of joy. You will have a life full of abundance. Because when you follow that path of joy, you are able to make the money and have the lifestyle that you truly need and want to exist in this life. Following your joy is like following the pre-programmed destination set course that your soul came into the world to experience. And it's about discovering it. And once you do, it leaves you so much happiness and fulfillment. I am so much more happier as a person following my joy, no matter who thinks I'm crazy and who doesn't. It's about me and my experience. And I want that for everyone, because I don't know if you can tell, but I go through my hard days, I go through my sad days, but I know that deep inside I carry this joy within me, and it's something that I've always followed in my life. Yes, I have not really settled down into a type of career that imprisons me. I've always found different ways of trying to grab happiness and follow my joy. And what has made me joyful has changed in my life over the time. Now it's a new type of joy. It's one in which I want to embrace teaching some spiritual knowledge and awareness that I have awakened to in order to help others. One of the biggest obstacles that we have about joy is how to follow joy when others are suffering on Earth. One of the things that the Dalai Lama talks about, and it's something that absolutely everyone can get in touch with when they really think deeply and past their situation that they're in that's painful and the suffering of others, is to understand that these are temporary. They're not permanent. You will have always moments of temporary pain, but then following that one day will be a realization of joy, of moving past it. In many ways, joy is victory to me. Joy is something that we experience when we go through the pain and we triumph over it and we come out stronger and we grow from it and we learn. And one day we'll be able to look back in hindsight and laugh in joy. And that's the secret of what the Dalai Lama carries inside. That's why he's so joyful and laughing all the time. That's why the fairies laugh as well. Because with pain, there's always that next step into joy. So always remember that and keep that in your heart. Whenever you're going through a painful moment or event, it's temporary. The pain will go away, and what will be replacing it one day will be joy. All the religious books and the messages for humans have been about finding heaven and living in bliss and peace. And when you really think about the nature of heaven, what is it? It's everyone following their joy. We are here to harness heaven on earth. That is our future. That is a promise. That's our birthright, and that is a vision that many of us have and are awakening to. So follow your joy, and you will become a catalyst for others to follow their joy, and we will transform society in a very big way. And I cannot wait until that happens, when I look out and see everyone in this world following a path of joy. So I wrote down some things. So I have some exercises that will help you follow your own path of joy and what I have found that helps me. So I hope that they help you as well. Feel free to pause and write down in a journal if you have been taking notes within the Pleiadian University online classes already, or just simply listen and reflect and come back when you want to and when you feel ready for it. So I call these steps instead of separate exercises because there's a ladder towards meeting your joy. And I found that there's something that we work towards in our life. And eventually when you get to this point of moving up the ladder, you finally reach that plateau of joy. And then you can have pain, and you can have all these other experiences, but you'll always know that joy will come to you once again. So, step 1, pause the video or do this later and write down what brings you joy. For me, it's to teach and show things to others that have helped me over the years. Simply that. To empower and to enchant with magic and visuals and art is something that gives me joy. Yours is going to be different and unique. I posted a picture of myself on Instagram twirling around in a park in this flowy dress. Something very simple, but it gives me joy to know that I have the freedom to dress and to express myself in the way that I want, regardless of who's watching. Joy can make us do things that seem crazy to others because they're unique. And what your joy is not going to be necessarily the same joy for others. So right now you have to dig down in your soul, what makes you joyful. Write down what gives you joy. Happiness is the emotion, but joy is a soul fulfillment in which it feels like you could live the rest of your life in this way. Some of you have had those moments of realization within you, and I have hit that with my channel and kind of the direction I'm going in the future. So just think to yourself, what is it that you want to do that will bring you the most joy in your life? Write down some ideas. Number 2, your joy is the North Star within yourself. So a lot of times the North Star can sometimes not be visible to us. We just might not be looking for it, not looking in that direction, not really looking for a compass, and going day to day in our life. So find out and give yourself a time to look at what are the obstacles that keep you from finding a life full of joy. What is it that stops you from following your path of joy? I will say that in the beginning, I had a hard time following joy. I was afraid about money. I was afraid about losing my place in the world and the society that I was working at some stores. I was always in the service industry. I also became a teacher, and I just felt like I was not really following truly my path of joy. What brings me joy? What do I love to do on my own time? What would I love to do all the time, as much as I can in life? And it turned out to be spiritually teaching. So what makes you joyful? But this step 2 is about looking at the obstacles. Are you afraid about money? Are you afraid about the people around you who will laugh at you? Are you afraid about just taking a chance and failing? Are you afraid that there won't be something past the joy and that you'll get to the joy and you'll be bored or something? Write down all of your fears right now, because there's going to be a different way of looking at it in the next step. So step 3, now you're going to look at your list and you're going to look at your obstacles that you have put down. What do you think you can do to move around those obstacles, or ignore them, or get by them in some way? Your victory, your personal triumph, is to get past those obstacles today. Start thinking about ways of how you can overcome it, and do it in the most loving way as you can. Because when you do it with love, as far as with the people around you and not with anger, and you want to follow your joy and you do it with love, people will be more accepting of you, and they might even get out of your way. If you find that you have obstacles that are coming from other people, show them that you want to follow this path and do it in a loving way. And most people will respect you and move out of the way and let you go. But if it's also more materially about financial obligations and things like that, find ways that you can start to include your joys every day in your life. So you have to work at a big corporation because you have to make the money to bring it to your family. I understand. But what are ways that you could do something joyful on the side every day? Make sure that you do that so that you're not just working a 9-to-5, grinding away for society, and you're forgetting about your North Star. You're forgetting about your soul fulfillment. Something The Secret does not tell you as a secret is that you cannot manifest anything in your life without actually having joy towards it. The Secret will not work for those that just sit back and just wait for a check to come in the mail and they're just thinking thoughts. No, it's about following your joy to get those things coming into your life because you're opening the doors to abundance and receiving. So follow things that make you happy, and I promise you, there will always be money. There will always be a way of making it in your life, and you can find ways of living with less too. And that's exactly what many people have found with minimalism and paring down and just getting back to the basics and feeling more joy coming from less. This is a really important movement, and I'll be talking about that more on my channel because that's something that I'm awakening into as well. And I'm really excited that it seems like a huge society movement. But that's the whole thing about joy. You can have joy even through the fear. You just have to find ways of making it past the fear and getting over those obstacles that you have in your life. So you have started to write down how you can move past your obstacles. Maybe you had a conversation with your spouse or your family, and you've told them what it is that gives you joy and what you would like to follow in your life. No matter the consequences, you're just going to follow it, and you're going to see what happens. You're going to be open to receiving the universe's blessings because you yourself are following and aligning to the course set for you in the very beginning of time, in this incarnation. So it's time to open yourself up to following your joy, no matter the consequences that your mind may tell you. It's time to follow your heart, which is your intuition, which will lead you back to your North Star, the compass within you. Follow your joy. So now you're going to set out to do it. This is the step 4 in which you are going to now start to plan. Okay, so how can you move from one job that doesn't give you joy into another job that's going to give you joy? How can you move from a relationship that doesn't give you joy into a relationship that gives you joy? How can you move from an environment or a home life that doesn't give you joy into one that gives you joy? These are your times where you're starting to plan. Now you're taking it, you're giving yourself permission. I'm going to do it. This is a lifetime in which I'm going to follow my joy, and I'm going to remember to do it no matter the consequences and no matter the problems that I think that can arise in the future. Just know that when you leap, you might find that you'll fly. It's a leap of faith that everyone talks about, but it's true. So, step 4, make a plan. Step 5. Now you're looking at your list, your plan. You have this wonderful calendar or a journal that starts to kind of dictate the different pathways that you're going to take to get to your joy. Now you're going to have to give yourself permission to do it. I want you to take your time with me right now and say, I deserve to follow my joy in life, to experience the happiness and bliss, even through the moments of pain and suffering. When I see joy, I will grab hold of it. I give myself permission to experience a joyful life. If you need to pause and write that down, you can. And if you just want to paraphrase what I said, of course. But this can be your mantra that you say today. And say, I am a joyful person. I wish to follow a path of joy, and I will. These are very important things that we say to ourselves that build our intention to follow our joy. So, take your time right now, say it right now, and give yourself permission after you have finally started a plan. Now it's time to give your permission to actually set action towards it. Step 6. Step 6 will actually help you further on your journey and giving yourself the permission and the allowance to follow your joy in life by understanding that the collective of humanity is actually following their joy. There's a certain type of path that civilization moves, and that's really why we have all these inventions and technology and self-expressions and human rights movements, because this is all about souls getting to the point of having a more joyful life, Technology is created in order to allow people to have a more joyful life. Yes, there's other intentions to create technology, but in the whole scheme of things, I feel that it brings a lot of joy to people, whether we are connecting to others that we wouldn't normally do because we're living on a street and maybe there's not a lot of people around us that we can connect to, or whether it is about connecting ideas and sharing ideas across board, just helping each other awaken and realize things within ourselves. And also, technology is going to be helping us in the future in terms of robots and doing things that right now are the jobs that humans do, but eventually the robots will take over those jobs and allow the humans to create things that are going to bring them joy and do things that are not going to be factory type of industrialization workload any longer. That's the type of future that I honestly feel that we are heading towards. And I think that we have been there in another lifetime. This is a chance to experience that once again and maybe correct some mistakes that we've made in the past. Who knows? But I can tell you for sure that it seems that technology is trying to help everyone follow their joy in the big picture of things. But yes, we have to watch out how we program it and all that kind of things. But I think that we can be excited for things to come. I know that when I use my Alexa, she gives me joy because there are certain things that she does for me that I don't have to. I don't have to set an alarm. She reminds me when things happen. I don't have to turn my lights on. She turns my light on for me. And these are things that will give me more freedom and more time for myself because I'm not doing little tiny tasks anymore. So I think as a whole, if you can look at society as growing towards how the soul is going to be more open to receiving joy, that is a way to give yourself permission. You're just doing what the whole collective is doing and trying to every day in their own way. Everyone is trying to find their joy, but it's hard sometimes when you are not spiritually awakened to the idea that you deserve joy, it's your birthright, and you have the full permission to do it because that's why you're here. Consciousness is in a vessel to experience joy. If there was no such thing as joy in the universe, I don't think that there would even be a point to have experience in life. Think about that for a moment. We are here to experience joy. And I think that's why the Pleiadians and the Dalai Lama and the Ascended Masters really consider joy as like the pinnacle of human evolution or pinnacle of triumph over the spirit. Because it seems that the universe itself, as a sentient force, a collective consciousness that we are all part of, is all about trying to experience joy through a physical means. Human rights movements are about joy. The LGBT community and the Blacks' rights and women's independence, they have fought to have more joy in their life. They're not trying to take over other people's lives and lifestyles. They simply want to be able to follow a path that brings them joy. That's what human rights movements are actually about. A path of joy. And it's the struggle and the fight to try to have the freedom to live a path of joy. So just remember that. And that will help give you permission for yourself that while people are struggling to fight against tyranny and those that want to keep their freedom down, then if you don't have someone to fight, all you have is to fight yourself. So just remember that about following your joy. Step 7. So once you have started to plan, you started to see society moving towards joy, you are giving yourself permission to have joy, look at your house, look at your lifestyle, look at your self-expression. What is it now physically that you can incorporate around your environment to give you more joy. If it is about minimalism, that's great. I'm finding that this is exactly what's giving me more joy. And I think a lot of people are finding that too. But find ways that you can surround your environment with joy. It could be simply by bringing in more plants into your environment. It can be maybe getting a pet that maybe you always wanted. It could be simply something very easy to obtain, but you have just not done it yet for yourself. So look at your environment and how you can transform it to give you joy. I transformed my home into an elfin home. And thank goodness that my husband is accepting of it, but it gives me joy. And I think down inside it gives him joy as well, because it gives a nice, peaceful, tranquil spot for us to relax in. So what gives you joy? Design your environment around that, and also start to express yourself in what brings you joy. Part of self-expression and the human rights movement in terms of transgenders and those that are trying to express themselves differently, like otherkins, is all about following a path of joy. This brings me joy. To wear elf jewelry and to dress in a way that maybe is not necessarily accepted by society, it brings me joy because it's all part of self-expression and following my path of joy. And you'll see that it'll all start to connect together, and you'll start to realize what your soul purpose is. All of these things will connect together. Your home environment, your lifestyle, the way that you express yourself will start to mesh with your life path as well. Your job, what you love to do with yourself and how you make money will start to connect to how you live, how you look, how you express yourself. You'll become a whole united being, and you will not feel such a split in your psyche in terms of having to work and having to play. What about them being all as one? So those are the 7 steps to living a life full of joy. And you're going to have to keep on checking back with yourself. Am I doing this out of joy, or am I doing this out of obligation? Am I doing this out of just society's familiarity and comfort? Find your joy. But make sure that it also aligns to morally, and be honest with yourself, because if we find joy in things that hurt others and harm others, I don't think that's really truly joy, because then you're going to feel a sense of guilt, and it will come back to you when you spiritually awaken. So make sure that your path of joy is one that never harms another and is simply about freedom of expression from yourself. Something I would love to leave off with is a little short part from the Elves of Canada, How the Pleiadians Taught Me How to Live, Love, and Laugh Again, by Joel Blanchard. And he has this point, and it's funny because when I was looking for a short little piece of Pleiadian joy that I can give to you all, I landed right on the perfect page for this. As we walked towards them, Daviden looked at us, smiled, and said, "There they are." Then, speaking loudly enough for Jonathan and me to hear, he said, "Good morning," with a pleasant smile. The other villagers offered us big smiles as well. My father and Sarah stood up and jogged towards me, reaching me before I could get to where they had been sitting. Sarah practically leapt into my arms and gave me a big hug, tight, soulful hug, and a kiss. As soon as Sarah released me, my father hugged me tightly as well. We couldn't help but profess our love for one another. The men of the village remained seated, and Jonathan walked over to join them to give us some privacy. "Wasn't that energetic shift last night amazing?" my father asked. "Even though your mom had crossed over, I realized now that everything's going to be fine. The people here are incredible." "Yeah, last night was crazy," I exclaimed. "I felt like I was laid upon a cloud and worked on by shamans who reprogrammed my brain. I watched as my brain was carefully guided up a tube that led to this huge hive mind. There was this entranceway at the end of the tube that looked like a cervix, and it only let good things in, and it opened up and allowed me, or my brain, in. And then I realized that the cells, this huge mind, seemed to consist of where actually individual brains from different types of beings, and they allowed my brain to join with their brains. I've been so peaceful ever since having that experience. Before I kept running scenarios thinking about Mom, mostly. But now I want to focus on a fabulous future and what's happening right now, and I'm able to do so. The last thing I remember doing last night was lying on the ground out there, Sarah added eagerly, while pointing towards the front of the cathedral. But I had these amazing dreams all throughout the night. It was like I was given permission to seek happiness and do what I want to do. I feel like I don't need to search outside myself for answers, as if I tapped into a great consciousness. I feel like my heart and mind are open and free. I woke up in Gianna's bed feeling super happy. I laughed and hugged Gianna until I started crying with joy. This is a story about a man and his girlfriend and his father and mother who walked into a hidden community of Pleiadians in Canada. And so this is what they're talking about, is their experience of meeting these people that have kind of reworked their brain and just opened them up to having a path of joy, even through a suffering event, which you could read the book for. I'm not going to give it too much away. But as you can see, Pleiadians know how to spread joy, and that's what I hope to do more on this channel and through the Elven spiritual path as well. Because I think Tolkien was very good at spreading joy with his books, and his elven realms were those that were full of peace and joy, and very much like the hobbits as well in the Shires. But the elves definitely had joy, and they knew how to live it that way. So I think that that's something we can look forward to on Earth, in our new Earth, is one in which every soul follows more their joy instead of obligation or feeling like they can't follow their joy because they're obligated towards society standards, and really just move past that. And we start to construct a new world in which every soul is more joyful and is more spiritually fulfilled inside. So I hope that this helped you, and I will see you all on the next video. Class is dismissed.